Okay, greetings, fellow writers and authors. Welcome to Clayton Communications and Publishing, our Facebook online newsletter. And I am Blondie, your coach and host for this segment. We always like to open our segment up with some words of inspiration in some way, maybe sharing a story. And I thought I would share how I got started in publishing in the first place. I remember years ago having gone through various traumas in my life, and one day I was turning around in my grandmother's yard, and I was looking up in the sky, and I was saying, "God of the sky, would you please take these thoughts away from me?" And I thought that he would do it, but instead I heard this voice that said, "No, I'm leaving them there because you're going to write about them one day." Well, I went on with life. I never thought any more about it. And of course, if you were to look back at my life and history, you wouldn't look at what my history and you would go, she doesn't have the makings to be any kind of writer or publisher. Because later on, as I entered into high school, they found out that I was I had been promoted to the ninth grade and I was reading on a seventh grade level. So I didn't tell my mother about it, and apparently nobody had notified my mother, so they were just willing to let me go through like that. But what ended up happening is I wanted to take Spanish, and so I went to my guidance counselor and I said, I want to take Spanish. And he said to me, "Well, you can't take Spanish because your reading level is too low." And I thought, what? To myself, of course. And then I asked him, I said, "Well, what can I do to change that?" And he says, "Well, you could go to summer school." Well, I really liked having my summers off, but I was willing to sacrifice and give up for that. So I said, "All right, sign me up. Where do I sign up?" So I signed up for summer school, went in reading on a seventh grade level, came out reading on an 11th grade level. And from that day on, I've always just kind of loved books. I've loved reading and learning things from books. And so that was how I got started. That at 10 years old, that voice that spoke to me. And later on, as I traveled through life, there was another situation that happened that really helped me and gave me hope that I could do just about anything. And that was I wanted to take piano lessons. And so every week I would go to the piano teacher. I didn't have a piano at home, so I don't know why my parents would have even considered for me to take piano without having one at home, but they did. And I went, and every time I would go, I would, it was like I had to learn everything all over again. And one day my piano teacher said to me, she said, "Blondie," she said, "if you work hard at it, you could really be good at it." Now, looking back, I could probably read a lot into what she meant, but I looked at it as a positive, and from that day on, I never completed learning how to play the piano, but what I did gain from that was this positivity that if you work hard at anything, you can accomplish it and you can do it. And of course, that was what I took into publishing when the time came. Years went by, and my husband was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and they gave him 2 days to live. And it was a time when I cried out and I said, I just don't understand this. Am I ever going to get a break? Because I looked at my life and I just saw everything was just happening to me. And it was during that time that I stopped fussing and murmuring and complaining for a minute. I sat back on my sofa and I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden it was like a movie. And my life was flashing before me. And in the while my life was flashing, I began to hear things being spoken inner that I had never shared out loud. And at that point in time, something clicked on the inside of me, and I knew that God had called me, that my life was that He was real, and that I didn't. My life was never going to be the same. I felt like there was this major change that took place in my life. And so that's kind of what, and then as once the movie stopped flashing, then I heard the voice say, "Now you can write the book." And I'm thinking, write the book. I have no idea how to write a book. Or don't you know what, you know, that you remember the fact that I went into the ninth grade reading on a seventh grade level. I haven't wasn't really that great in English, but I kind of knew in my heart of heart that this was what I was supposed to do. So writing the book, it took me 4 years to write the book because it was so painful. And so my words to you, what I would say to you is that if you do desire to write your story, go ahead and write it because somebody is waiting to hear your story. I remember when I was about 14 years old, going through depression, sadness, and just feeling hopeless again. And in my English, one of my English classes, we started a series or started to read this book called The Diary of Anne Frank. And she was about 14 when she wrote that book. And I read her book and that gave me hope. So somebody may be waiting for you to write your story. And so you can't publish unless you write. And so write the story. And as you're writing the story, for me, it was painful. I would toss it in the trash, take it out of the trash, but it was healing. And so if you have gone through something of what I've gone through, know that it's healing and know that you can get through it. And there's what's on the other side is greater than what you may be experiencing on this side. So write it. Once you get it written, then of course now it's getting it typed into the computer. Then it's the proofreading and the editing. And all of those things can be done. They don't necessarily have to be done by you, but if you choose to do it like I did, then of course you can do it. And once you get it written, now the choice is a publisher. Which publisher? Who does the publishing? I had no clue, but I knew this. I knew that there was a type of publisher that published books, and so I just started looking at books and seeing who published them, and then started trying to do the homework to see, okay, where can I find them? And as I'm sure some of you recognize that when God puts something on your heart to do, He's going to bring all those pieces. All the pieces are going to start to fall into place. So the next thing that happened was somehow I got my hand on the Writer's Digest. And in the Writer's Digest, it kind of helped clarify. It taught me how to write more concisely, and if it taught me a little bit about publishers. And also, I discovered in there was an advertisement for the writers market, which contained over 8,000 traditional publishers. And so I thought, wow. And I got a copy of that, and I started looking at, okay, what are they looking for? What are their guidelines? And once I started looking at their guidelines, and I saw um, how, and they even gave you tips on the types of things that they are looking for, and what would make whatever you're doing more acceptable to them. And so I got that, and I started to apply that. So I would take like five at a time, and I would say, okay, here's the guidelines. Let me see if I can line up with those guidelines. But the first thing you do with a traditional publisher is a query letter. Sometimes some will take you without an agent, and others will say gotta have an agent. But I look for the ones where I didn't have to have an agent. And I went through that back and forth for about 4 years, but I learned a lot. So it wasn't like a loss. It was a learning lesson. It helped to sharpen my writing skills, and helped to sharpen my marketing approach, and all of that. And then along comes the print on demand or the self publishing. And so as a result of the having already gone through 4 years with the traditional side, now is the print on demand or the self published. So it helped prepare me to know what I wanted when I was looking at the self publishers, and to be able to sharpen, of course, already improve the quality of my writing, and know a little bit more about the what the self publisher, how can I use the self publishing perspective or that side to get what I want done without putting too many expectations. Because, you know, we can have these over expectations. And so I kind of knew how by this time to navigate through that self-publishing side. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit more next time, next segment, about the types of things that you can write and so on and so forth. But you can do it. Anyone can publish a book today. And the best part about publishing a book today is the fact that you're leaving a living legacy of words, and people will, generation after generation, your words are going to be alive to them, and your words are going to heal them. Your words are going to improve their lives. Your words are going to help make people better people because you took the time to pen those things on paper. So until next time, Coach Blondie here. Keep the faith.